The Fall of El Fasher, a genocide the world rushed and ignored, from systematic siege to strategic slaughter, the annihilation of Darfur's final sanctuary. For 550 days, the world received daily warnings. For 550 days, diplomats issued statements while a city of 1.5 million people was systematically starved, bombed, and besieged. Then, in 72 hours of concentrated violence, it was over. When the Rapid Support Forces (RSF) captured El Fasher on October 26, 2025, they didn't merely conquer Sudan's last military stronghold in Darfur. They completed a genocide 2 decades in the making, this time with unprecedented international visibility and equally unprecedented global inaction. Hello, my name is Meron, and this is Analytica Today. The fall of Al Fasher represents far more than a strategic shift in Sudan's civil war. It marks the horrifying culmination of a calculated campaign of ethnic cleansing enabled by global apathy and fueled by foreign weaponry. This city, which had become the final refuge for over 1 million displaced people, has now become the epicenter of a humanitarian catastrophe that was both predictable and preventable. This analysis traces the deliberate strangulation of El Fasher, documents the systematic atrocities that followed its capture, examines the international complicity that made this tragedy inevitable, and explores the dangerous new realities this creates for Sudan and the stability of the entire Sahel region. The deliberate strangulation siege warfare as a weapon of genocide, the fall of El Fasher was not a sudden military reversal, but the predictable outcome of a meticulously executed siege designed to break not just an army, but an entire population. For 18 months, the RSF employed what human rights organizations have termed the textbook tactics of siege warfare. They systematically encircled the city, choking all major supply routes and methodically cutting off food, water, medicine, and humanitarian aid. The results were both predictable and catastrophic. Malnutrition rates among children soared to 40%, cholera spread rapidly through contaminated water sources, and the Sudanese armed forces' ability to resupply their defenders was critically compromised. By early October 2025, the city's defense had been sufficiently degraded through this deliberate strangulation. The stage was set for the final, brutal assault. Our job is only killing. The systematic erasure of a people, the capture of El Fasher was not followed by military consolidation, but a massacre that revealed the RSF's true objective, not just territorial control, but the systematic destruction of specific ethnic groups. Across the city, the pattern repeated itself. Summary executions at checkpoints, mass graves in abandoned quarries, and the targeted hunting of non-Arab Fur, Masalit, and Zagwa community members became systematically policey. The international enablers, how foreign powers fueled the carnage, Al Fasher's fall, reveals an uncomfortable geopolitical truth. This genocide has multiple international sponsors who have prioritized strategic interests over human lives. The RSF's transformation from militia to a modern fighting force was directly enabled by foreign support. Chinese surveillance drones provided critical intelligence. UAE-funded vehicles created mobile firing platforms, and Wagner Group tactics and training enhanced their operational capabilities. Meanwhile, the Sudanese armed forces received backing from Egypt and Saudi Arabia, creating a proxy conflict where Sudanese civilians have become collateral damage in a regional power struggle. What we are witnessing in Sudan is not a civil war in the traditional sense, explains regional security analyst Omar Mohammed. It's a multinational business venture disguised as a conflict. The UAE sees strategic ports and regional influence. Egypt fears Nile water security. Russia wants gold and Red Sea access, and all these interests are being pursued over the corpse of Sudanese civilians. International mediation efforts, particularly those led by the US-sponsored Squad, have proven spectacularly inadequate. Despite repeated warnings of imminent catastrophe, diplomatic efforts failed to curb the flow of weapons or impose meaningful consequences on the perpetrators. The echoes of history, from the never again to again and again, the international response to the crisis in Al Fasher represent a catastrophic failure of global conscience and institutional mechanisms designed to prevent mass atrocities. This is not a forgotten conflict, but a deliberately tolerated one. The tools created specifically to prevent genocide, UN Security Council resolutions, targeted sanctions, diplomatic pressure, and the doctrine of the responsibility to protect have proven useless against the combination of geopolitical interests and humanitarian fatigue. The parallels to previous failures are both striking and damning. The systematic nature of the violence echoes Rwanda. The siege tactics recall Salvagio, and the international community's hand-wringing inaction mirrors its response to the early stages of the Syrian conflict. Calls for no-fly zones, arms embargoes, and civilian protection forces were met with bureaucratic delays and geopolitical calculations. The regional fallout, a crisis that will not contain itself. The consequences of Al Fasher's fall extend far beyond Sudan's borders, creating ripple effects that threaten to destabilize an already fragile region. With Darfur now effectively under RSF control, the Paramilitary Forces command strategic gold mines that fund its operations and smuggling routes that connect Chad and Libya. This consolidation of power and resources enables more ambitious eastward movements, with reports already indicating RSF alliances with rebel groups in southern Kordofan that threaten to encircle Khartoum. The humanitarian consequences are equally regional in scale. Neighboring countries, particularly Chad and South Sudan, face overwhelming refugee crises that already strained resources cannot accommodate. The fall of El Fasher stands as a dark monument to international failure, a case study in how genocide happens in the 21st century with the world's full knowledge and tacit consent. The systematic siege, the methodical massacre, and the global silence together demonstrate that the phrase never again has become one of the emptiest promises in modern diplomacy. As tens of thousands of survivors flee into the desert, joining the millions already displaced, the question remains: how many more El Fashars will the world allow before the rhetoric of human rights protection is matched by courage of meaningful action? The hourglass has emptied. The echoes of El Fasher demand an answer that history will not forgive us for ignoring. I'm Aaron Damto, and this is Analytica Today.